Think about the shirt you put on this morning. You probably think you chose it, right?
I mean, I definitely stood in front of the closet for a few minutes weighing my options.
Exactly. Like maybe you checked the weather and then made this conscious decision before pulling it off the hanger. But what if the exact color, the fabric, and the very moment you reached into your closet were actually coded into your biology before you were even born?
Right, like what if every choice you make is just, well, a pre-programmed response?
Yeah, it completely messes with your head.
It immediately attacks the core of human ego, doesn't it?
Hmm.
We desperately want to believe we are the authors of our own story, not just actors reading lines that, someone else wrote.
Spot on. And that tension right there is the grounding material for today's deep dive. We are unpacking this massive, mind-bending, four-part philosophical essay series. It's titled Looking for Your True Self, and it was written by Zhifeng back in 2012.
And it is a dense, wild ride.
It really is. Now, before we jump to the deep end, I want to clarify our mission here. We are not endorsing this philosophy, nor are we validating its worldview or taking sides on its social commentary. Our goal is strictly to unpack this radical perspective on predestination, societal roles, and this cosmic quest for absolute freedom.
Yeah, we just want to break down the mechanics of these ideas so you, the listener, can explore them without feeling completely overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Which is vital, because this text doesn't just ask if you have free will, it actually attempts to dismantle the very concept of your daily identity.
Yeah.
I mean, it blends modern anecdotes with ancient cosmology to ask a simple but really terrifying question. Who are you, really?
So let's start right at the ground floor. Xu Feng looks at human biology and starts circling everything we absolutely did not ask for.
Right.
The text lists exactly 18 specific things entirely beyond our control. We're talking about, your height, your physical appearance, your race, ethnicity, the historical era you're born into.
Yeah, the exact birth date.
Yes, your parents, and ultimately the time and manner of your death.
And if you stop right there, I think most people would just nod along, like, sure, you don't choose your genetics or the decade of your birth. That's just biological circumstance.
Yeah, nobody argues with that.
Right. But Zhuvain takes that accepted baseline and stretches it into our most intimate personal preferences.
The stuff we think makes us unique.
Exactly. The quirks we consider to be our unique personality traits.
And to prove this, he brings up these absolutely wild identical twin studies. Let's look at the example of the Ohio brothers.
Oh, this one is fascinating.
It really is. So these are paternal twins separated from a very early age. They reunite after 39 years, and when they finally meet, they discover they both received legal educations, they both love mechanical drawing and carpentry, and, get this, they both frequently vacationed in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Which is already a lot of coincidences.
Right. Now, my immediate skeptical reflex here is just, well, confirmation bias. Like, sure, they both do carpentry, but how many hundreds of other things were completely different about their lives that we are just ignoring to make a good story?
That is the completely natural, logical pushback. But Shui Feng focuses on the sheer mathematical improbability of the details that follow.
Right.
Both of these separated brothers had ex-wives with the exact same first name.
Which is crazy.
It gets weirder. Both of their sons had the exact same name, and both of their second wives had the exact same name.
Yeah, when you calculate the statistical probability of that happening by pure chance, it basically approaches 0.
Exactly.
Which is staggering. And he pairs this with the second example, this time about twin sisters separated for over 10 years. So they agree to finally meet at a train station. And one sister, completely on a whim, decides to get an impromptu haircut before the meeting.
A totally spontaneous decision, allegedly.
Allegedly, right. Because she arrives at the station and her sister has the exact same new haircut. And not only that, they are wearing identical jackets, skirts, shoes, and carrying identical purses.
So we have to ask how this happens. I mean, if they didn't communicate, how did the preference for that exact skirt or that exact haircut get transmitted?
Yeah, what's the mechanism?
Swiveng's conclusion is that our habits, our interests, and our seemingly spontaneous decisions are controlled by what he calls a mysterious consciousness, or the true self.
Okay.
The daily self you present to the world, the one you identify as you, is actually a false self, operating on this hidden frequency.
I was actually trying to wrap my head around the mechanics of this, and it's basically like finding out your perfectly curated, highly personal Spotify playlist was actually generated by a secret algorithm encoded in your DNA.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. Like you feel the emotion of the music, you feel the agency of clicking the like button, so you think you just have really great taste. But in reality, you are mathematically programmed to click on those exact songs at that exact moment in your life.
That is a brilliant analogy. You experienced the physical sensation of choice, but the parameters of that choice were defined by a hidden code long before you walked into that train station or logged into the app.
Okay, so if I'm accepting this premise that my weird obsession with 80s synth pop or my sudden urge to get a haircut is actually just a pre-installed software update, what happens when we scale that concept up?
You mean beyond just personal quirks?
Yeah, like if our personal tastes are programmed, what about our careers? Or human society as a whole?
This is where the philosophy takes a really sharp, heavy turn from biology into sociology. If our internal choices are programmed, then human society is essentially a massive server running a pre-written script.
A script, wow.
The text argues that humanity is simply playing assigned roles to keep the plot moving. Civil servants, judges, police officers, businessmen, teachers, and yes, even thieves and hooligans.
Wait, even the criminals?
Yes, they are all structurally necessary for the illusion of society to function.
He actually uses the phrase biological robots running on programmed procedures. Now, if you're listening to this on your commute or while doing the dishes, the idea that you are a literal biological robot probably sounds like sci-fi nonsense.
Definitely sounds abrasive at first.
Yeah. But the text uses this fascinating example of a grieving widow to explain the cognitive dissonance of this programming.
Yes, the widow whose husband is killed in a war. When the tragedy strikes, Schweffing argues that her false self grieves and wails loudly.
Right.
Why? Because that is the behavioral output her societal programming demands. It is the role she is expected to play for the community. But her true self, that hidden, mysterious consciousness we talked about earlier, actually cries with joy, thinking, finally, I'm free.
That is such a jarring disconnect. I mean, it's so dark.
It is, but it highlights the immense gap between what society extracts from us and what unconditioned freedom actually feels like.
Yeah, he uses this mirror analogy to drive it home. Imagine looking at photos of yourself at age 8, 18, and 48.
You look completely different.
Exactly. Your beliefs are probably different. Your friends are different. So which one is the real you? The text argues none of them are. They are just temporary masks worn for that specific act of the societal play.
And to counter those masks, Shuofeng introduces the concept of the Tathagata.
The Tathagata.
Right. This is an Eastern philosophical term that essentially means the ultimate unconditioned reality of things. In this context, living in the state of Tathagata means your true self has absolutely nothing to do with catering to society, catering to the trends of the times, or catering to the public's expectations.
You are entirely sovereign.
You are.
But, and this is a massive but, the text carries a very dark warning about this ultimate truth.
Yes, it does.
It asserts that 99% of people simply cannot and should not know this truth, because if they realized they were just biological robots, society would instantly collapse.
Which brings up the mechanism of ignorance. Like, why did the designer of this system make ignorance so vital to the script?
Right. Why hide it?
The author uses a series of tragedies to explain why we desperately need the illusion. Take the Greek myth of Oedipus. He unknowingly marries his mother.
Classic example.
Now, before he learns the truth, the script is working perfectly. He actually enjoys a warm, loving, successful family life.
Right. He's happy.
Exactly. It's only the revelation of the truth that destroys the illusion, leading to his mother's suicide and his own blinding. The truth was the destructive force.
And he grounds this in modern examples too, right? Like he talks about a migrant worker who labors tirelessly, breaking his back to provide for his family, blissfully raising a child he believes is his own. Then a DNA test reveals his wife's affair. His entire reality is thrown into a whirlpool of pain. The situation only transformed from a comedy into a tragedy because the hidden code was revealed. Ignorance was keeping him happy.
And perhaps the most visceral example of why this programming is necessary is that of a pig.
Oh, the pig analogy.
Yeah, a pig would not survive a single day if it possessed the conscious realization that it was only bred to be slaughtered.
Because the stress would literally kill it.
Exactly. The psychological weight of that truth would induce so much stress the biological robot would basically short-circuit and die.
Which leads to the text concluding that humanity is trapped in a highly engineered enclosure. It uses these specific ancient terms, saying we are trapped in the three realms and bound by the five elements.
And we should probably clarify those terms because they aren't just mystical flavor text.
No, they have a very specific function here.
Right. In many Eastern traditions, the three realms refer to the domains of desire, form, and formlessness, essentially the entire spectrum of mortal existence and suffering. And the five elements, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, represent the physical building blocks and energetic cycles of the material world. Zhefeng is using them here as the literal parameters of our simulation.
So they are the operating system.
Precisely. We are driven into our social circles by these forces the exact same way cattle are driven into sheds or pigs into pens. It's a mechanism of control to ensure the play continues.
Okay, I can kind of wrap my head around the idea that my polite office persona or my adherence to traffic laws is just a social script. But the text doesn't stop at society at large.
No, it goes much deeper.
It brings this right into our living rooms. It targets family, love, and loyalty. It's one thing to say I'm acting like a polite employee. It's entirely different to say my deeply held love for my own family is just survival acting.
Zhefeng doesn't pull his punches here at all. He draws a direct, literal comparison between real life and a movie set.
Yeah.
Think about it. When an actor is killed on screen, they aren't actually dead. When actors look into each other's eyes and call each other mom or dad, it's completely fake. Everyone on set knows it's an act to service the plot.
And he argues we are doing the exact same thing in our daily lives. Like, people pledge undying love to spouses that they actually have no romantic feelings for anymore just to maintain the family unit.
Or people smile and defer to bosses they inwardly despise just to keep their paycheck.
Yes. He even points out the hypocrisy of people fiercely criticizing a country, the example given is the U.S., while simultaneously racking their brains trying to send their kids to live there. It's all an act. Acting is simply a survival skill to navigate those five elements.
Which brings us to a concept that completely shatters the traditional family structure, reincarnation.
Oh, this part, yeah.
But not just as a spiritual comfort.
Yeah.
He uses it as a destabilizing loop.
Mm.
Zhefeng asks you to seriously question if the woman who raised you is really your mother.
Yeah, this part actually stopped me in my tracks. He asks, in the grand, infinite timeline of the universe, how many mothers have you actually had? Like, the woman who gave birth to you in this current life, is it possible she was your daughter 500 years ago, or your sworn enemy 1,000 years ago?
If you view existence as an infinite loop of role-playing, then the labels of mother, daughter, or spouse lose all permanent meaning. They are just temporary casting assignments for this specific stage play.
Temporary casting assignments. Wow.
To back this up, the text pulls a really fascinating quote from Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I remember that.
When someone tells Jesus that his mother and brothers are outside looking for him, he replies, "Who is my mother or my brother? Whoever shall do the will of God, the same as my brother, my sister, and my mother."
So he's redefining family entirely.
Exactly. Zhefeng isn't using this to preach Christianity. He is presenting Jesus as someone who saw through the biological programming and actively lived out his true self, rather than catering to his assigned family script.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back on this on behalf of anyone listening who is tightly clinging to their family right now.
Fair enough.
Because if I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, what an incredibly bleak, cynical view of human connection, right? Is the text seriously arguing that loving your children, or trying to be a decent person, or honoring your homeland is just catering to an illusion?
I know it sounds harsh.
If every warm emotion or act of loyalty is dismissed as survival acting, what is even the point of being human?
That is a completely natural reaction.
Yeah.
It feels totally nihilistic if you evaluate it through the lens of earthly values. But to understand Zhefeng's logic, we have to look at his incredibly strict definition of the true self. According to this philosophy, as long as you want to remain a person in the traditional sense, you will never find your true self.
Because being a traditional person requires attachment to the world.
Precisely. Let's look at the mechanics of attachment. If your mind is tied to anyone or anything in the mortal world, if you have desires for money, power, reputation, or even just the seemingly noble desire to win glory for your family name, you're anchoring yourself to the script.
So you're basically volunteering to stay in the matrix.
Yes. The text argues that as long as you have anxiety, fear, demand, or attachment, you are allowing the operating system to control you. So it's not that loving your mother is evil, but rather that earthly attachment binds your consciousness to the illusion. You cannot discover who you truly are while you are busy managing the props, the costumes, and the relationships of the stage play.
All right, so if earthly life is just this tightly controlled, inescapable script, and true freedom is utterly impossible while we have earthly attachments, where is the exit door?
Go way out.
Yeah, if it can't be done here, how does one actually find their true self?
To find the exit, the text zooms way out. It moves from the diagnosis of our earthly problem to a cosmic solution. Shuofeng views the entire universe as a grand stage for life, and that's life spelled with a capital L-I-A-F-E.
Right.
And he argues that everything on this stage is designed in strict mathematical proportions.
Yeah, he specifically mentions that everything, down to the exact number of eyes on your face and bones in your body, is proportioned and meticulously planned by the greatest creator.
Yes. And within this universe, there is a hierarchy of life programs. You have the plant world, the animal world, the mortal world, and the celestial world.
Okay. A hierarchy.
The key metric that separates these worlds is degrees of freedom.
Degrees of freedom. Okay, he brings it back to the pig and the human here, right?
He does.
So a pig has less freedom than a human. It is subject to human control. It can't choose its destiny, so it has a much lower degree of freedom, meaning it has almost zero access to its true self.
Right.
Humans have more freedom than pigs, so theoretically we can live out a bit more of our true selves, but we are still heavily restricted by our programming.
And here's where the text makes a highly specific structural claim about modern human life. It argues that humans living in traditional marriages have less freedom than those living in an alternative community he calls the new oasis for life.
Let's unpack that, because
right.
he says people in traditional marriages are bound by the 36 8-diagram arrays of life. We can't just skip over that terminology. What exactly is an 8-diagram array in this context?
Right, that sounds complicated. In traditional Chinese cosmology, the 8 diagrams, or bagua, represent fundamental principles of reality, basically interconnected forces that shape the world.
Okay.
Shuofeng is using this concept to describe the coded labyrinth of societal expectations. When he says traditional families are bound by these arrays, he means they are locked into an energetic grid of constraints.
Like invisible fences?
Exactly. Think about the financial burdens of a mortgage, the complex dynamics with in-laws, the emotional compromises required to keep a marriage intact.
The everyday grind.
Yeah. Those aren't just daily stresses. In this philosophy, they are literal mechanisms designed to keep your consciousness tethered to the mortal world.
So it's like a web of localized gravity keeping you on the ground.
Yeah.
And he argues that those who step outside of that traditional structure into this new oasis for life have shaken off some of those specific shackles, gaining a higher degree of freedom. But even then, he admits the mortal world is still just a program. The worlds closest to hell have the least freedom, and the worlds closest to heaven have the most. So what is the ultimate destination, the true exit from the simulation?
The text names it as the Celestial Islands continent of the Elysium world.
It sounds like a mythical utopia, but structurally, it serves a very specific philosophical purpose for his argument.
It really does. It is the only place in the universe where life is completely free from all operating systems and programs.
No more scripts.
Exactly. It's the place where you no longer play a scenario role. The text says that in the Elysium world, everything is self-decided.
Okay.
You transition from being an NPC, a non-playable character running on background code, into the game developer. You become your own designer, your own director, and your own screenwriter.
That sounds like ultimate power.
It is, though he is careful to note that total absolute freedom only belongs to the greatest creator.
Okay, so if we distill this final answer, Shuofeng is fundamentally saying you cannot find your true self as a human being. Just as a pig cannot find its true self as a pig because the very biological and social nature of being a human is a restriction.
You have to transcend the species entirely. The author concludes that the only absolute way to find one's true self is to become a super-celestial being.
And how exactly does a biological robot achieve that? Like, what's the actual process?
By following the Tao. Now, the Tao is often translated as the way, but here it means aligning yourself with the fundamental source code of the universe.
Tapping into the mainframe.
Exactly. By bringing oneness to the consciousness of the greatest creator, you achieve self-consistency. You stop fighting the script, detach from the earthly drama, and elevate your consciousness until you graduate from the mortal world entirely.
Wow.
That is the escape hatch.
Okay, let's take a breath and wrap our heads around this incredible philosophical arc we've just traveled.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. I mean, we started with the startling realization that our morning routines, our hobbies, and maybe even our haircuts might be secretly predestined by a hidden consciousness. Just like the Ohio twins who couldn't escape their algorithmic preferences for carpentry and ex-wives' names.
And from there, we explored the unsettling idea that human society is an intricate stage play populated by biological robots. We saw how the mechanics of blissful ignorance, like the pig oblivious to the slaughterhouse, keep us blind to the script so the societal machine keeps running.
Right. And then we tackled the really uncomfortable concept that even our most intimate family bonds might just be survival acting.
Yeah, a temporary casting assignment in an endless loop of reincarnation.
And finally, we followed that thread all the way up to the cosmic scale, arriving at the pursuit of becoming a super celestial being in the Elysium world, all just to achieve the ultimate freedom of writing your own script.
It is a sweeping, staggering perspective. And honestly, regardless of whether you agree with Wolfing's cosmic conclusions, there is immense value in exploring such radically different viewpoints.
Oh, absolutely.
Walking through this framework forces us to deeply examine the mechanics of our own motivations. It makes us question our constraints, our attachments, and how we define freedom in our daily lives.
Yeah.
Are we acting out of true, unconditioned desire, or are we just following a script we were handed at birth?
It really makes you look at your daily routine and the people around you in a completely different light. Which brings us to our final thought for you to mull over today.
Big question.
Yeah. Imagine you woke up tomorrow and discovered absolute, undeniable proof that your entire life, like every career triumph, every crushing heartbreak, every mundane Tuesday morning, was just a meticulously written script designed by a hidden consciousness.
Oh.
Would you desperately try to break the code and rewrite it, or would you finally relax, let go of the anxiety, and just focus on giving the best performance possible?
A fascinating question to leave them with.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.